It's a beautiful thing.
We in 6 countries. That's
Yes.
what I mean. So that's the thing that stands out to me.
Shout out to everybody. Shout out to everybody. We love y'all.
Yes, thank y'all for listening.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the channel. I'm Coach Deb, representing one half of the Healing Corner podcast. If you're interested in booking a consultation as well as service or a reading, go ahead and check me out at debshealingcornerstone.com.
I'm Coach Yams, owner of Healing is Work Coaching, and I help millennial professional women to live on purpose unapologetically and to help them to stop doing shit out of obligation. If you need help with that, reach out to me, Coach Yams, YAMZ.com. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Healing Corner podcast. We are here today with a guest. This is Coach Yams speaking, by the way, and I have my co-host here, Coach Deb, and our guest today is Amber J. Adams. Amber J. Adams is an NYC-based creative, writer, lover of fun and travel, a coach dedicated to helping millennials define success on their terms in work, play, love, and life. Currently, she is exploring what it means to rebuild her life on the cusp of 40, while also guiding individuals seeking to gain the clarity, courage, and confidence to make changes in their life, career, and mindset. Amber, before I have you say hi to the people, I'm going to let everybody know what the episode title is. This conversation is going to be about healing through change and movement. And so the title today is Radical Reset, Healing Through Change. Thank you for joining us, Amber. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I am doing just fine. I'm feeling good and I'm super excited to chat with you all today.
Yes. So I just want to know, like, you're on the cusp of 40. You've
Yes, I
had
am.
some change, some big transitions. Tell us about it. Tell us where that has you in life right now and maybe what you're looking forward to.
Ooh, good question. So, I've had some major changes, I would say, over the last year, like really leading up to 40. I would say the last couple of years of my 30s just handed me change after change after change. Some changes good, some were like definitely way more challenging. So I would say the first change was that back in 2022, I got laid off from my job. And at the same time, I was meeting a man and starting a relationship that took me all the way to London, England. And I was able to spend about 8 months in England, a year and a half in total, going back and forth and just kind of enjoying this European living abroad experience, but also the beautiful experience of, just really being in this beautiful relationship. And that's changed earlier this year, so March 2024. My relationship ended and I came back to the United States. I came back to New York. This was literally days after my 39th birthday. And so I began looking at a radically different year for myself that did not look the way that I thought it was going to look, in which I was having to really almost kind of rebuild and restart my life from scratch. So I ended up getting a new job, moving to a new apartment. I'm around new people. I have new friends. I have new hobbies. Everything feels new, but it has been a lot of changes. And I would say that it's been challenging. It's been really challenging. There have definitely been moments that have been really challenging, but I feel today, several months post, a lot of gratitude for being able to climb back and kind of get back onto my feet. And yeah, I would say that where you found me today is in a state of gratitude, but I definitely still have my moments. I don't want to pretend as if I've waved a magic wand and I'm just like, yes, I'm okay and I see the reason for everything and everything happens for a reason. I'm still very much in a place of wow, like I can't believe so much change has happened, but I also am able to embrace the gratitude as well. Yeah.
A follow-up question I have would be, what have you learned about yourself in this change, in these
Mm,
changes?
right. I think what I have learned about myself in these changes, I don't want to say like, yes, I am resilient, which I already knew. I knew I was resilient. I think you can't make the type of changes that I've made, like leaving the US and starting a business and doing all these things without having some level of resiliency. But I think what I've really learned the most is that I'm capable of being vulnerable, which is something that, I didn't always see myself as very capable of. I've had a life where I've had to be strong at many turning points. And this kind of relationship and this transition was like the first time that I allowed myself to be vulnerable enough to really let other people into my joy and into my story in a way that I had never done before.
I love that. Go ahead, Deb.
Okay, so my question is, when it comes to since you have been finding healing by changing your surroundings and then embracing new
Mm.
experiences, what would you say, like, when it comes to movement, how does that play in your personal growth?
And when you say movement, you mean movement like movement between cities, countries, day to day?
Yeah, when it comes to, like, your surroundings, because me, myself, I'm kinda like I consider it, like, nomadic because
Mm-hmm.
when I look back, even my childhood home no longer exists, so
Mm.
I have since I have stepped into adulthood, I've been more open-minded to, like, seeing the world in a bigger light because I come from a really small town. So for
Mm-hmm.
you, how does that help you with your growth?
Hmm. I think that movement, if I look back on it, has always played a role in my story. So I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. And I love my hometown and I love my city, but it's not a place that I would say a lot of people tend to move from. Like people are kind of born and die basically within miles of those events. And so for me, when I moved to New York by myself for the first time, which was when I was like 24 years old, that really changed me in terms of like, I think, you see that physical movement that you're making, but then it also causes you to move mentally, like in terms of your mindset around what you can do, what you can be. You just really are able to broaden your view and your vision for yourself so much. And I think that that has continued to play a role for me as I've made, kind of bigger moves. So before I went to London back in 2019, I took a year off and I traveled around with a backpack through 9 countries. And so that gave me an opportunity to be nomadic and to also test myself through the movement of countries and places and cultures and people and seeing so many different things. I think now my challenge in some ways is how do I find growth by sitting still? Because now coming back to the US, I am okay. I got a new apartment. I live in Brooklyn now. It's beautiful. And feel like I'm challenging myself to discover what growth means through not moving to a degree, but through finding a sense of community and balance and feeling rooted in a way that I have not really done throughout my 20s and throughout my 30s.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask, what I'm curious about these backpacking adventures. um, what do you feel like you learned most about yourself during the time in which you had only a backpack, and it was just you, like, and you're having to depend on being in different places and navigating different currencies and meeting different people and staying in different places because there's not a home base. How did you, in what ways did you grow when you did that travel?
Right. I think like even through this conversation, I'm seeing like I've had multiple resets, and to some degree, they've all been radical in their own way. I think what I learned during that time when I was traveling, it was just me in a backpack, and I was 34. Like I put this out there to say I wasn't like a young 20 something just fresh out of college. Like I paused my career. I decided that this was what I wanted to do and kind of give this gift of time to myself. And I think I learned who I am almost kind of like stripped down. Like you remember back in the day when they had MTV Unplugged, this was like Amber Unplugged because it was just me, the limited items that I had. So it was me not relying on, especially as a woman, the kind of traditional things that we look to adorn ourselves, to make ourselves beautiful, and to kind of rest on those things to like get us through the world. It was just me, a few outfits, whatever I had, maybe two lipsticks. I think I was like, okay, I'll bring a red, a pink, and a neutral. So we'll make it three lipsticks. And it was very much like me seeing who I could be without all of the things. I think it was also a time in which I was able to put a level of separation between myself as Amber and the identity that I had taken on as a New Yorker, which I took on very early, in my early 20s. So you start to see, okay, who am I without that identity too? Because being a New Yorker, being a person who lives in a big city, you're kind of automatically afforded this idea when you're presenting yourself, beyond the city into the outside world and all the different connotations that come with that. But when I was traveling, that was no longer there. I was just Amber. I had to like figure out what did that mean? How did I want to present myself? And what did it really mean for me to just show up as me with no additional stuff, no extras, just, me, myself, and I.
So I had a question because I know earlier you said you were in a love connection. And
Mm.
so when it comes to like healing out loud after losing that love connection, um, what helped you to be able to heal? And then also, how could your experience, how could you uh, kind of express to people how it could help them if they went through something similar?
Right. I think the biggest thing that has helped me in this healing process, because I would say I'm definitely still on the mend, is really giving it the space to grieve and actually treat grief as grief. I think that, culturally, when we're talking about a romantic relationship, there's always kind of this feeling of a replaceability. So, like this idea that, oh, you'll find somebody else, or, oh, the next thing will come. And I guess to some degree, you can say that because it's not like, a relationship isn't like losing a parent or losing a child where there's a sense of permanence there. You can't get another person that is that person. You can get another boyfriend or girlfriend or a partner, but it's not the same person that you once had. And for me, I found that the biggest thing that I thought was helpful was really kind of giving it the space to say, I'm really upset about this. I'm sad. I'm heartbroken. I'm hurt. All these emotional things that were really tied up in grief for me, and really just allowing myself to kind of say that out loud, that I was sad, or that, and sometimes I am still sad, and being able to give it just that level of gravitas that I think that we don't always give to our romantic relationships, in a way that I think that they deserve. Because, this is somebody that I spent a year and a half with, who I obviously loved very much, enough so that, I wanted to move to a whole different country. And that deserved to have time for me to be really sad about it and to acknowledge it in that way.
I love that. Um, because yes, like you said, grief, it exists in all different spaces. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can grieve people that have passed on, but you also can grieve relationships. You can grieve the idea of what you thought a relationship would be. You
Mm-hmm.
and this is friendships, this is romantic, this is relationships with living parents. There's options, and feeling yourself through the feels is necessary, because if you keep shoving it down, you're still going to have to deal with it. It's going to circle back
Right.
around. So go ahead and let it flow.
Exactly. I would say if I'm proud of anything, it has been that I have let it flow, which I've never been a good person about shoving things down. I'm very much like, okay, so this happened. Let me just, really kind of stare it dead in the face and figure it out. And that was incredibly painful. Like there have been moments where the grief has felt visceral, where it felt like literally like something within me was breaking. But I am proud of the way that I have been able to just stare it in the face and not try to distract myself or try to, like, avoid how uncomfortable it really felt and how much how sad it was to kind of go through all of these things, especially at this time in my life where, I'm on the cusp of the next big thing, turning 40. Like that is a big deal, and I'm, universe willing, I will be happy to see it when February comes around. But it's definitely a moment where I'm like, okay, so the life is still giving me some surprises, and I guess I just got to be open and ready for them, radically, apparently.
I wanted to ask you about like cultural differences because I know you living in New York and then going towards overseas. Like, did you notice a difference with the people there, and did that affect your healing process as well? Because I know you did say
Mm,
you made new friends and stuff like that too. How do you feel
yeah.
that affected you? Because I know for me particularly, when I moved, I started to see people like their mindsets and mentalities, kind of like similar to what you said, where I'm from, people live, they're born, and then they die there.
Mm,
So
mhm.
when I moved, I started to be able to meet like other people that kind of think similar like me, and some I would meet, they are still in the same mindset as back home. And just going through your journey, could you explain that to us?
Yeah, I think I would count that as one of the biggest blessings of my life to have been able to have met so many people from so many different cultures and different mindsets, and how I've allowed that to really impact me as well. I would say when I was in the UK, because I was there for, this big chunk of time, that it kind of gave me this interesting exposure both to myself as an American, but also to like what I kind of found parts of the British mindset to be. Like especially at the end when I was, going through the breakup and like making the transition back to the US, so many people were so incredibly nice to me. And people in London aren't necessarily known for being very warm and fuzzy, and I would say that they aren't really very warm and fuzzy, but they are very thoughtful and very careful and very there's a deepness that happens, I think, in having those conversations. So many people supported me, even from, my former partner's family, all the way to people that I would just meet at the bus stop and people that I would talk to at the store, because I'm still Southern me. I would still be just talking to everybody. But they really gave me the space um, to kind of witness what I was going through at the time and cheer me on in their own way. And then I think like being here in New York versus living in Tennessee, that's also such a big mind shift in that I think, living in a bigger city, there's just an air of competition that you're just in. And it makes you strive to be better. Not to strive to be better, but also to be really inspired by the things that are around you. Where I feel like sometimes when you're in a smaller city, because the resources you're competing for are limited, or because people haven't had that experience of really broadening their mindset around what's possible, that sometimes you kind of get this feeling that only one person can have only one thing, versus looking at it and saying, well, oh, that's a cool idea. Let it inspire me to then go and do something, or how do I want to approach this? And I felt that as well when have been traveling abroad, and I'm really kind of seeing myself through the lens of an American, a deeper appreciation for what I would say is a very American attitude of we can do anything that we want to do, and that there are no limits. There's only hard work. And I think that in the best of times, that is the best of who we are as a country. And I was able to have a deeper appreciation for that than I typically do when I'm here.
I appreciate that. Back to you, Yams.
Yes, I know that you spoke about early on that one thing you appreciated about the relationship and that you learned is that you learn you're capable of being vulnerable.
Mm.
Can you define what vulnerability means to you and then tell the people what value being capable of being vulnerable has brought into your life?
Hmm. I think what being vulnerable, what that means to me now is really just an openness. I think it's an openness no matter what happens. So, like when I met my former partner, when I met my ex boyfriend, I had to be vulnerable in telling people, like really letting them into that story because I needed their help. I was trying to go to the UK. I was looking for jobs. I was like networking. Like I was putting really just working really hard and letting people into that story. People loved it and they supported us so much and supported me so much. And so being vulnerable for me in that way has meant having an openness no matter what happens, and not knowing, okay, well, this story is going to have a happy ending. You don't have any idea. And I think sometimes people are hesitant to share the joy of a relationship and kind of being that vulnerable place because dating relationships can be so hard these days. But I think that when you have the joy, it is important to share it and to fully be in it. And that doesn't mean telling all your business, of course. It just means like being like, yo, like I'm happy and this is a really good thing, because you might inspire people along the way who needed that little bit of motivation in some capacity. And I think how it has really helped me grow now, and what I've learned that I would pass on to other people, really is about that openness and what it feels like to feel like you are really surrounded and lifted up by the joy of others for the joy that you have. And that wasn't something that I've always kind of let people in on, to a degree. Like I was very much one of those I'll move in silence type people. And I think that there is something special now about letting people support you, because I think that's really what it comes down to, is that I felt that I had to kind of soldier on and do so many things on my own, because that has been a large part of my story. But being able to allow myself to be kind of lifted up and surrounded and supported, I think has really been very healing for me, and also a huge part of growth as well.
It sounds like vulnerability helped create more community. Am
Yeah,
I?
I would say so. I would
Yeah.
say that it has helps create more community, and
And
then
make it deeper.
also exactly it's
Yeah.
made it deeper. And I think it also allowed for other people to share their stories with me as well, and for people to see me not the way that they always have. Like I think that I've always chronically been the strong friend, and through this process, people have had to acknowledge my strength in a different way that they never got to, in part because I never really put it out there to be got. And so doing that has been really huge for me. And I think that it's something that I want to continue doing even now that, I'm in a different position. Yeah.
So, for our listeners that are out there, and if they want to work with you, how what would that look like if they just wanted to have some type of coaching session with you?
Huh. Wonderful question. So, I primarily function as a coach in the career space tends to be mid-career and also leadership, so emerging leaders. But I always like to say that if my message and vibe resonates with you, reach out. So I typically work with people who are feeling stuck in some capacity, people who are looking to gain some clarity around what steps they want to make next. I'm helping them to really build up the courage to say out loud the things that they need to say and to release the stories that they need to release in order to be able to move forward. And also the confidence to take action on our strategies. And for me, it's all about being able to hold people accountable and really creating a space for them. So the best way to find me is via my website, which is ambercareerstudio.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I try to post on LinkedIn and not post the cheesy things, and really bring that vulnerability into the space and have connection in that way. And I can be found everywhere around the web as Amber J. Adams.
Well, thank you, Amber. I have one more question.
Yeah,
I
girl.
know early on you said that you've not had a lot of stillness.
Yes.
What does stillness look like for you in your future? Is it something that you are interested in exploring? How are you feeling about it?
I am still, I think, discovering how I feel about stillness, because I think a big part of my identity for so long has been me moving around. It's been me on the go. It's been me traveling. Like, I actually almost booked a trip to Paris like for next month. I had booked the trip and then I was like, no, I need to be in one spot. Like, I was talking to my aunt on her birthday like a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, Amber, you've had a lot happen this year. She was like, you might just be mentally exhausted. And I was like, oh my God, like, I think that's a thing. And she was like, it's okay for you to sit in one spot and like gear up and get ready for 2025. And I was like, yeah, maybe that's a good idea, because I almost, don't know myself unless I'm really kind of moving around. So I think stillness for me at this time in this season looks like me maybe sitting on my couch and drinking some tea. But I also think it's me reconnecting with being creative. Like, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday, and I was saying that through this process, what's also resetting for me is my why, like the why behind why I do the work that I do and how I do it. Because in this time of transition, that has felt a little disconnected for me right now, because I realize that, a big part of my why is freedom, and that has shifted for me in some ways, and that, the need to create business as a form of having the freedom so that I can like stay connected to my family and my community in the US, that shifted for me in some ways. So I hope that stillness right now will be me reconnecting with my why, with my creativity, with doing things that I enjoy, and not feeling like, I don't know, not obligated, because I mean, you want consistency, and consistency is an obligation to some degree, but doing it with a sense of joy and being still in that aspect.
I will just say that I love movement and I love seeing your movement. Like, you have been an inspiration for me for, quite some time. We ain't gonna say how many decades. But I also know that I very intentionally in the last, I'd say 3 months, have been very intentional with requiring stillness from myself,
Mm,
because I recognize that when I am constantly moving, my mind is constantly on, there's thoughts, there's things, it's all happening all the time. And
yeah,
when I'm still, it can quiet. It doesn't have to be all the things. And then it's like, so what's going on inside of Yams? All right.
right.
Okay. Well, damn. Something I will say, and then we can wrap things up after everybody does like their final bits. I've been doing a practice for the last, I want to say 25 days now. So
Hmm.
Darshan Chakra Kriya. It is a meditation. It is a meditation for transformation. is my understanding. That's the easiest way to explain it. It requires you to
Hmm.
sit down for a minimum of 11 minutes and do breath work. And in doing this, I have found that I asked one that I very much enjoy the stillness that at least that bit of time gives me. But I've also
Mhm.
found that I've sat down and so easily, it seems, committed to something because I know that there's alleged benefit that is great enough for me to go towards.
Mm.
And there ain't been, and the thing is that this is a meditation you dedicate 40 days to. So it's not like a do it every other day or when you feel like a thing. If you're doing it for 40 days. If you miss a day, you start over day
Oh,
one
wow.
to 40. Yes. I've not missed a day.
I bet you haven't.
And here's what's crazy though. How is it that I've sat down and made such a commitment with just, a friend shared this with me, and it's a trusted friend. And like she does the yoga thing, she knows the thing. So I trust what she's sharing. But when she shared, it was like my spirit said, no, you need to do this. You need to commit to this. I've not missed a day. And it makes me wonder why there are other things that are not non negotiable.
Mm.
But I
Yeah,
would not
I
have
love that.
had that would it if I had not sat still.
I need you to send that to me.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, okay, the challenge of doing that and committing to the 40 days, because you know it's committing to the 40 days, and it's also just showing up for yourself. And
Yes.
what you do through that, and this is kind of a coaching moment, and something I would tell my clients is you're rebuilding your trust in yourself to do that, to show up for
100%.
yourself, to be committed to something, and to like continue to do it to the consistency, because now there's no going back. Like it's there at a certain point you can't say, oh well, I can't do this. Or when you look at things now after you're done with this challenge, looking at something and thinking, oh well, I can't do that. Now it's just like, okay, if I want to do this, I know I can sit down and commit to it. It's finding the time, or either seeing, okay, with the time that you have, because now you have 11 minutes in your day to do this. What can you do with that 11 minutes once you have finished this? Because it's possible. So I'm here for it.
And it has impacted how I've shown up for my business in a real way.
I bet it has.
So, yeah. Anywho, do you have any final thoughts to leave with the people? And then Deb, you do your thing. And before I do this, thank y'all for listening. With the like, shares, and subscribes, y'all can make those happen to let other people hear these conversations that we're having. But Amber, any final things? Deb, any final things?
I would say my final thing is like, don't be afraid to start over. Don't be afraid to reset. Don't be afraid to refresh. However that may look. It might be a little start over. It might be a little boom, like a little start over, or it could be a big one. And it's okay to have that happen. It's okay to start over after a love is lost. It's okay to start over in a new space and in a new place, and to allow the gratitude and the sadness to coexist. It's okay. There's enough space for all the things. Yeah.
Well, Amber, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story with us and also being an active part of the community when it comes to healing and doing your coaching work. So I just wanted to put that out. I'm going to pass it on to Coach Yams.
Thank you.
Yes, ditto. Thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your story. Because none of us are going through anything that's particularly unique. And it helps to hear other people going through and getting on the other side or still working through the process of this crazy thing called life. We're all figuring it out. Um, Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Make sure you go and connect with Amber. She's on all the socials, Amber J. Adams. Um, like, share, subscribe. If you've gotten anything from the episode, make sure that you're telling somebody about it. Um, that's all we've got for you. And until next time, take care of yourselves.